How many layers separate your true self from the version the world expects to see? Each day, we put on a mask, what Carl Jung called the persona, a necessary interface between our psyche and the social world. Like an actor stepping onto a stage, we play roles: the flawless professional, the perfect child, the always available friend. At first, this mask serves us, helping us navigate societal demands. But when the actor forgets he's acting, when he mistakes the character for his true self, a slow suffocation of the soul begins. To Jung, the persona is not who we truly are, but what we and others believe we are. These words take on an alarming dimension in the digital age. On social media, no one dares to reveal vulnerabilities. Between filters that erase imperfections and captions that simulate wisdom, we build cathedrals of appearances while the interior remains hollow. This is the contemporary drama, a constant performance. The more time we spend playing roles, the more disconnected we become from our true motivations. Jung warned about this danger. Complete identification with the persona leads to psychic rigidity. We're present everywhere except within ourselves. Between notifications and virtual validations, when was the last time you faced the silence needed to hear your inner voice? Would you even recognize your own desires if they weren't prepackaged for external approval? Jung observed that the price of excessive adaptation is paid with the currency of vitality. Every repressed part of ourselves consumes psychic energy to remain hidden. We live, therefore, in a state of perpetual exhaustion, not from the work we do, but from the monumental effort of being who we are not. This exhaustion is not merely physical. Jung described it as soul fatigue, a gradual impoverishment of the psyche that manifests in subtle symptoms, a constant sense of emptiness, difficulty in finding genuine pleasure, an endless craving for distraction. In his clinical studies, Jung emphasized how patients who were perfectly socially adapted would manifest inexplicable anxiety or depression, the inner cost of an impeccable outer mask. Jung was concerned about what he called the artificial personality, a construct so distant from the authentic self that it eventually collapses under its own weight. In our culture of constant self-construction, we become architects of personas increasingly elaborate, yet increasingly unsustainable. The shadow. You pretend doesn't exist. Behind the perfectly built facade lies a wild territory Jung called the shadow, the repository of everything we deny in ourselves. Not just primitive impulses, but also unacknowledged talents, emotions deemed unacceptable, and unprocessed vulnerabilities. The shadow is that hidden, repressed personality, often inferior and burdened with guilt. The more rigid our ideal of perfection, the denser our shadow becomes. When a colleague makes a harmless comment and you feel a disproportionate anger rising, that's the shadow speaking. When you unconsciously sabotage your own happiness or repeatedly attract destructive relationships, the shadow is operating backstage. The irony of repression is that we never truly eliminate what we deny. We merely lose conscious control over it. Jung often reported seeing this phenomenon in his patients. The more perfect the persona presented, the more violent the eruption of the unconscious when it finally occurs. Emotional collapse, existential crisis, the inexplicable emptiness amidst material success, these are signs of a neglected inner life. The modern paradox is clear. Never have we had so many tools for connection, and yet the epidemic of loneliness grows. Could it be that this loneliness reflects not the absence of people, but the absence of self? Jung explained that the shadow, when ignored, projects itself onto the external world. We see in others what we deny in ourselves. The arrogant colleague might mirror an unacknowledged ambition. The controlling partner might reflect repressed dominant traits. This mechanism of projection distorts our relationships, creating seemingly external conflicts that are, in truth, unresolved internal battles. The integration of the shadow is the first genuine step toward self-knowledge. This process demands brutal courage, to look within and acknowledge impulses, emotions, and desires that the carefully crafted persona would never admit. It's an uncomfortable but potentially liberating encounter. For what remains unconscious controls us. What becomes conscious can be transformed. Jung emphasized that the shadow contains not only negative aspects but also undeveloped creative potential. Abandoned talents, suppressed passions, and repressed sensitivities all reside in this unexplored territory. Healing begins when you truly meet yourself. The path Jung proposed is not artificial perfection, but authentic wholeness. The process he called individuation. It's not about eliminating uncomfortable aspects, but expanding awareness to include them, integrating light and shadow into a fuller, more honest totality, and from there, seeking to transform what troubles us. Individuation does not exclude the world. On the contrary, it gathers it. Paradoxically, it's only when we accept our inner contradictions that we become capable of genuine connection. Self-awareness does not lead to isolation, but to a deeper and truer sense of belonging. In his therapeutic work, Jung encouraged his patients to dialogue with the unknown parts of themselves through dreams, active imagination, and creative expression. The only person worth treating is the individual, he said, for only the individual has a unique reality. Jung developed practical tools for this process. Dream analysis, for example, not as mere curiosities, but as messages from the unconscious to the conscious mind. Active imagination, a form of inner dialogue with archetypal figures that emerge from the psyche, working with symbols and artistic expression as bridges to the unconscious. All these techniques were not meant to offer a conventional cure, but rather an expansion of awareness. Jung described his own individuation journey, the periods of deep disorientation that preceded transformative insights. He did not present this path as smooth or predictable, but as fundamentally challenging and unique to each person. As we begin to integrate the shadow, subtle yet profound shifts occur. Constant anxiety eases because we no longer need to defend an unreal image. Relationships deepen because we offer authenticity instead of performance. The body, once burdened by the tensions of repression, responds with renewed vitality. Individuation is not a destination, but a continuous journey. In his later years, Jung recognized that we are never truly ready or complete, and this recognition brings an unexpected freedom. We don't need to be perfect, just true. What would happen if, for just one day, you let go of the image you've constructed and allowed your true self to emerge? What would it feel like to know that you are enough, not for the roles you play, but for the authenticity you bring? How much longer will you wait to begin your individuation process? The mask that protects also suffocates. The shadow you deny also consumes. The true encounter with yourself is not a philosophical luxury, it is a vital necessity. Now tell me, how many more days will you keep playing a role that doesn't represent you? How many versions of yourself will you keep burying before you find the courage to become who you truly are? If this reflection resonated with a forgotten part of you, share in the comments. What part of yourself is asking to be recognized? This channel exists not only for those seeking information, but for those ready for transformation. Thank you for watching.